Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Over the Hump. Today's guest, we have Raya, an alumni from Brent.
Hi guys, thanks so much for having me.
So Raya, can you introduce yourself and tell us the year you graduated from Brent?
Sure. Yeah, so as you already mentioned, my name is Raya. I'm an alumna from the batch of 2013. So graduated almost 8 years ago, which is crazy. And I'm a Lion through and through, as is my family. So attended the Mount Pleasant campus from nursery until high school. I also have two sisters who graduated, and as a lot of you know, my dad is also a teacher at Brent. So we're all of us are really part of the Brent community.
So during high school, how did you manage IB and college applications?
Oof. It's been a while, but from what I can remember, it wasn't very easy. I remember being stressed during senior year with all the different commitments that we had. But I guess if I could offer two pieces of advice, I think one would be to start planning and preparing early, and also maybe have an accountability group or buddy to make sure that you can meet all the deadlines. So I remember when I was a student, there was a group of us under one of the counselors then, Mr. Compton, and we would meet in Starbucks at ATC every other Saturday. Make sure we were working on all our essays together. That was super helpful. Yeah,
So-
are both you're applying next year, no? Because both of you are juniors.
Yes, we
Yeah.
are. So we're just starting the process, and things are starting to pile up, and it's getting quite stressful.
Yeah, I would suggest you start early. I mean, you still have some time, but you as soon as the first semester starts, meet with your counselor, make sure that you're aware of all the different deadlines, right? The regular decision deadline is different from the early decision deadline. So yeah, just make sure you plan ahead.
Okay, thank you. So now that we're talking about your time in high school, did you ever take IB economics with your dad? Because I am currently in his class.
Yes. Well, I hope he's not too strict on you, but yes, I did. I had no other option because he was the only econ teacher. I have to say it was weird at first, especially because he was also my basketball coach. So I saw him 3 times in a day. But overall, I think it was good in that it pushed me to work harder. And obviously, it had an impact on me because in college, I also ended up pursuing economics.
That's really cool.
So you said you pursued economics in college. How did taking IB help you in that?
Yeah, so even if it feels I guess really stressful right now, honestly, IB was super helpful for college. I think prepared me in so many ways. If I could just name one or two. One is the extended essay and all the IAs you have to do. I think those were helpful in terms of preparing me for all the intensive writing that I needed to do. I think that EE is around 4,000 words, right? Which seems like a lot, but honestly, once you're in college, it's not unusual for you to be expected to write an essay of that length in a week or even less than that. So one big thing is writing for sure. And I guess IB and Brent helped, I think culturally, I think the diverse, globally minded, multicultural culture at Brent, I guess helped with the culture shock. So, even if I hadn't been to the US before I actually moved there, it wasn't too hard to adjust to the curriculum or to the social scene. So I was able to make friends super quickly.
Yeah, so speaking of college, how do you feel college is different from high school, and do you have any advice to current high schoolers who are going to college?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess I'll caveat my answer with by saying that it's gonna differ depending on what school you go to, what subject you take, and also what country you end up studying in. But I guess in general, I think some of the big adjustments. Well, one big change is that you're definitely going to need to be more independent, especially if you're planning on studying overseas. It will be the first time for many of you to live alone. So you'll definitely need to get used to doing a lot of things on your own, from like cooking to doing your laundry, but also I think you'll have more control over your time. So unlike in high school where you have a fixed like 7, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. schedule, in college you can set your own class schedule. Some days you won't have classes, some days you'll have like night classes. So I think that's freeing in a lot of ways, but it also means that you have to be a lot more disciplined. And I think in terms of like the classes you're actually going to be taking, there's definitely going to be a lot less like hand holding and spoon feeding. So I mean, I think the IB does a good job of preparing you for this, but I think you'll be expected to think critically more and come up with your own opinions. Whereas in high school, you might used to getting very specific prompts for essays, or like taking tests with clear like binary answers, right? I found that in college, a lot of assignments, I guess except for subjects like math or other quantitative classes, a lot of the like tests and essays were more open-ended, with no clear like right or wrong answer. And like with what you're going through with the EE, like you'll be expected to scope out your own research topics with a lot less guidance and instruction. Yeah, I hope I'm not scaring you guys. But yeah, I think the IB should prepare you well.
That's good to hear. So moving on from all the school talk, our podcast has this thing where we ask our guests about things they've watched recently on Netflix or music recommendations. So do you have any of those?
Ooh, let me think. Well, right now I'm currently going through the Rolling Stones like top 500 albums list. With so much time, I've been like listening to around an album a day, and I found that it's been a great way to expose myself to genres that I didn't know I would like, such as like hip hop or rock. Personally, my favorite genres are jazz and R&B. And on Spotify, there's so many great pre-made playlists. So one I would recommend is called Butter. It's really fantastic, and it's updated regularly. I'm also a big fan of NPR's Tiny Desk series, if you're familiar with it. It's on YouTube, so that one's great as well. And also podcasts. I think that's really picked up right during the pandemic, but on Spotify, there's so many different ones you can listen to, more serious ones. So personally, I like listening to interviews with like my favorite authors and scholars, but also like really casual ones. So one I like, maybe not for you guys, but for the girls out there listening, is called Call Your Girlfriend, which is basically hosted by two besties, girl besties. They talk about a lot of like issues that women face. On Netflix, I have to think. I don't really watch a lot of TV, but last year I watched The Last Dance, as I'm sure you might, a lot of you did if you're into sports, right? So that one's a good docu-series to watch, and all of the other series that became popular, so like Queen's Gambit, yeah.
So moving away from like recommendations, like what have you been doing in general, like during the pandemic?
It's really sad because a lot of times I also ask myself the same question. I feel like the time has really just morphed into one big blur, and I don't really know how it passes anymore. But I mean, like most other people, I've also been hunkered down at home, went through a lot of the same phases. For a time I was baking and cooking a lot, working out, reading, watching Netflix. I guess one thing that I picked up this pandemic that I didn't do before is tennis. Because it's one of the only sports that's allowed, right? So before, like, my sports were really basketball and volleyball, but yeah, I couldn't do those anymore. So I found like a trainer, and I would play like almost every day before ECQ round 2. So that's been really fun.
Yeah, that's the same for me also. I used to play lots of baseball, right, with Joe. But since that sport can't work out, I went back to playing tennis during the pandemic. And yeah, since you're like away from each other, it's social distance.
It's safe. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's been fun. But I think like outside of work, I'm trying not to put too much pressure on myself to like, you know, optimize, pick up new hobbies. I think we're all just very stressed and anxious, right? So I think my advice also for you guys and for everyone else that's listening, just do whatever like refreshes you. If that means like doing nothing, you know, laying on your bed during the weekend, I think that's fine.
Okay, so moving on, Coach said that you do a lot of charity work. Can you tell us about the process that you do?
Okay, I'm not sure what specific like thing she's referring to, but I guess like outside of my job, I do a number of things. So I currently oversee a local chapter of this nonprofit called SOGAL Foundation, which is based in the US, but it has chapters all around the world, and it's basically it focuses on championing and empowering female entrepreneurs and investors. So for that, it's been a lot of like event organizing. We also do a lot of mental health workshops. So yeah, a lot of it has been online, obviously, because of the pandemic. I also started working with a volunteer group. This was last year though, which was tracking the state of the government response budget to COVID. So for a time, I was writing for a local news outlet called ANCX, if you've heard of it. But I guess that's not really, those aren't really charity. Maybe the one that Coach was referring to is a bike project that I started also last year. So for my birthday, I wanted to raise funds to donate bikes to frontliners in Metro Manila, because if you're familiar, there was a ban on public transport last year, right? And a lot of healthcare workers and essential workers had to walk to work. So wanted to do something that could help, and it wasn't gonna be a big initiative, honestly, but I garnered a lot more interest than expected. So that went on for about 3-4 months, and we donated about 145 bikes to different women in different jobs that I personally screened. And yeah, so I don't know what process you're asking about, but that one I think was a bit more ad hoc. So no, like clear. It wasn't really like an organization or anything. It was just like me and a few friends wanting to help out, pulling funds from our own networks and buying bikes to donate.
How do you think like we as students could help like our communities during this pandemic, similar to what you've been doing?
I mean, I think there are lots of ways to help, and it doesn't necessarily need to be a grand initiative. If that's something you want to do, then great. I guess my advice there would to do something that not many other people are doing. Identify gaps that you're uniquely positioned to fill. But again, I think there are many small things that everyone could do to help that would also make a big impact. For instance, I'm a big proponent of tipping delivery riders who've been essential workers during this time. And in terms of things that don't involve money, because I understand that you guys are still students, so you might not have like disposable income. I think to make it very tangible at home, especially if you have younger siblings, maybe you can like volunteer to take on extra chores, like help your parents with like online classes for your siblings. A lot of people I think don't have household help anymore, right? At this time, so maybe you can take on a few things around the house, and just reduce the burden on your parents, your grandparents, whoever you're living with. I think social media obviously is one big way to stay connected, and I think you can really use that platform to stay informed and also spread awareness about issues. And yeah, and obviously the most important thing I think is to do your part in making sure this pandemic ends soon, by maybe not meeting up with your friends for now, and get vaccinated as soon as you're able to.
So moving on to our last question. What is the most valuable lesson you've learned from your experiences with charity work?
Charity work or the pandemic? Well, I guess both, yeah. I mean, I think they go hand in hand, but I guess this might sound cliche, but I think like this pandemic has really forced me to reflect on what I really value in my life, and conversely what like I don't. There's this quote that I really like. I can't recall who actually said it, but it says something like, how you spend your days is how you spend your life. So I think during this pandemic, I've been reflecting a lot on my priorities, the things that, how I used to like spend my money, my time, my energy, before all of this, all hell broke loose, and thinking about like what things I would want to change after, right? Like maybe spend more time with family, like prioritize health more. But yeah, I think it's just been a lot of reflecting and reprioritizing.
I think that's pretty much all from us. So, Raya, is there anything you want to like share to our listeners, like anything you have coming up with your charities or any events like that?
Not in particular. I mean, if you're interested in like female entrepreneurship or economics, or honestly anything that I talked about, like feel free to reach out. I can share my contact details with the two boys here. Yeah, happy to help. But I guess just for like the students right now, I know you're going through a tough time. Like online classes hard. I can't even imagine how stressful it must be. So just take it easy on yourself and know that there are brighter days ahead.
Okay, so yeah, if anyone wants to reach out to Raya, you can like contact us. We will give you her email and other contact information. Yeah, so that's it for this episode of Over the Hump. Thank you so much, Raya, for coming here and talking with us.
Yeah, no problem. I enjoy. Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, so yeah, that's it for this week. So stay clean and quarantine.